And just this idea that there's so much opportunity here, and we're the greatest country in the world. And we have to reclaim that. And we can't be like at each other's throats. We have to be on Team America. And we're better than this. We're better than Amanda Ripley's conflict entrepreneur term. We're better than this. We can do it.
Welcome to this special edition of the Michele Tafoya podcast, the pre-Thanksgiving edition. Usually we do Wildcard Wednesday, but today this is too important. We are giving thanks, as always, for everything that we have in this country. And yes, do some people have more than others? Of course, that's the way of the world. Life is not fair, nor would we want everyone to be exactly the same. It would be very uninteresting. But we do want people to be able to talk to each other. And that's where an organization called Braver Angels comes in. And they have written a book that I'm going to strongly recommend to everybody. It's called Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. Chances are on Thanksgiving, you're going to be talking to people that you don't have everything in common with. Maybe you are politically divergent. But does that mean that that human being is worthless to you, is worthless in the scheme of life, is not important in the picture of America? No, we need to cross these divides, and we need to do it sooner than later. And unfortunately, there are some forces that are trying to divide us. Don't think that they're not. They are there. They'd love nothing more than to see America ruined by being torn in half from the inside out. So let's not let that happen. I am happy to have Doug Teschner and Beth Malow with me today. They are two of the authors on this book, which they've self-published so that they didn't have to bow to any publisher's wishes. Beyond the Politics of Contempt is the name of the book, as I said. braverangels.org is a resource where people from both sides of the aisle meet, whether it's online or in groups, and discuss things that we have more in common than we do that separates us. We want to just kind of lean into that. We want to push our brains into that notion that chances are when you go to a baseball game, you don't know what all the fans are, you don't know what their politics are. And it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. It's not everything about them. So I'm happy to introduce you to this book, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, and to introduce you to Doug Teschner and Beth Malow. They are our guests. With that, I will say happy Thanksgiving. And this conversation may be just what you need at the dinner table on Thursday. Well, welcome, Doug Teschner and Beth Malow. I'm so glad that you could join me. I've been a fan of Braver Angels. And by the way, so has my sister. And she and I are from opposite ends of the political spectrum. So it goes to show that these things that the two ends can connect. But I want to ask you first, and Doug, I'll start with you. When Braver Angels started, it was first Better Angels, then Braver Angels. Could you have anticipated a division in the country the likes of which we're seeing now? How is now compared to when you started this effort?
Well, when I started, it was back in the 90s. And in fact, I gave a speech in the New Hampshire legislature in which I found an old speech from 1998 in which I talked about declining civility. But when, it really kind of took off later. I mean, when I go back and listen to look at that speech, it seems almost kind of naive. Certainly things have gotten worse. And I was living overseas, and I was trying to follow what was going on in the country, and I was really scratching my head, like, what's going on back here? So, and I was looking for some place to sort of hang my hat. When I came back, I was running the Peace Corps in Ukraine, and then in Guinea in West Africa, and it was ironically it was Peter Yarrow of Peter Paul and Maria who I met in Ukraine, and in 2019 he came and did a concert, and afterwards he gave me a big hug and he said, Doug, I think I want to tell you about this group, Better Angels. It was called Better Angels. The name was changed to Braver Angels. So I was involved in 2019, and the beginning was in 2016. But the situation has obviously is deteriorating. It's really, where are we going as a country? So, I jived right in, and I'm sticking with it, and now we've written this book.
Yeah, but the book Beyond the Politics of Contempt, which I mentioned in the intro, but Beth, it's same sort of question. What keeps you hopeful and sort of determined that this kind of conversation can happen when we are so divided?
Well, I joined Braver Angels in 2017, and I had heard about it on NPR in 2016, and I tell a story in the book about being at a anti-Trump rally. I believe it was Indivisible, and I was in Nashville, where I lived at the time, and it just didn't seem like that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to understand why people had voted for Trump. And so I ended up finding more about Braver Angels, getting involved really early. They had a bus tour. They came here. Well, I'm in Vermont now, but I was in Nashville for 21 years, and they came to Nashville, and we did a workshop. It was fabulous, and it was reds and blues. It was conservatives and liberals, and I was on the liberal side. And I made great friends at that meeting who I still talk to today. And we started a group also locally called Common Ground Nashville, where we brought conservatives and liberals together. And I find joy. I really do. I actually enjoy conversations with people who are different than me, whether it's progressives, because I'm much more moderate, or conservatives. And I actually relish it. I enjoy it. I think I see the humanity when I talk to folks. So one of my goals as the author on this book is to try to get people to try out those conversations and just try to talk to your relatives and your friends and your neighbors, because we're going to have to make the difference. I don't think the politicians are going to do it. I think we're going to have to do it for the country.
Yeah. So, Doug, the book, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, practical steps to build positive relationships in divided times. I'm thinking that Jimmy Kimmel's wife could use this book right about now, because she admits to really, sort of alienating her family, because she believes that if they voted for Trump, they voted against her and her husband and her family. This inability for people to see beyond their own bubbles is really, I think, what's keeping these conversations at bay. So, Doug, where did you start in the book? What was kind of the recommendation for the first step that people can take? I have often told you about my friends at besthotgrill.com. They are doing something they rarely do, which is to hold a sale on their Solaire infrared grills. From November 24th through December 5th, they're offering a 25% discount off their Solaire Anywhere and Solaire Everywhere portable infrared grills. These, I got to tell you, are the perfect gift for a college student, a tailgater, someone who loves to boat, an RVer, a picnicker, or just a foodie, or for you. Don't you deserve the best under the tree this season? Also through December 5th, when you purchase a 27-inch or larger Solaire infrared grill, you will receive for free a stainless steel griddle and a quality USA-made cover to protect your investment. That's up to a $650 value. Now imagine not only grilling juicy and tasty food, but also making eggs, pancakes, smash burger, fajitas, pizza, anything you would like on your free professional style griddle. Go to besthotgrill.com to learn more about USA-made Solaire infrared grills and their Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. That's besthotgrill.com. Buy Solaire infrared grills on sale through December 5th at besthotgrill.com. Where did you start in the book? What was kind of the recommendation for the first step that people can take?
Well, it's when did politics become more important than family? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a fundamental. It used to be when we talked about our identities, it would be our work, our hobbies, our lots of things other than politics. And yet, statistics show that people people who have a child that's going to marry outside their political party. It never used to matter to people. But suddenly, somehow, politics has become so influential, and in a really scary way. We're so much more complicated than politics. And so, I mean, part of this is a stepping back. We need to have a fresh look at how we're looking at other people and how we're treating other people, and this us versus them mentality. We put people in boxes, and I appreciate that, about you in particular. And I know you have a conservative philosophy, but you're not all in one way or all in another way. And we really need to see each other as individuals and not make assumptions about people. And we're so quick to sort of label people, and it's it's very dangerous.
I talked to someone yesterday, Beth, who told me that there's I'm not going to mention the name, but a particular black conservative politician who needs security because it's dangerous to be both black and conservative. I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah. I think that Doug's 100% right. I think that we call it the exhausted majority. A lot of people feel, I know you've used that term, I believe, on your podcast, which I also have been listening to, and I really love them. I think that people assume that if you voted one way differently than you, that you're in this like crazy right left or right wing, because I think it goes both ways.
Sure it does.
And
yes.
Most of us just, even if we have strongly conservative or strongly progressive views, most people really want to get along, but I feel sometimes like the media, not all the media, and certainly you're an example of media that's trying to bridge these divides, but many in the media and many on social media and the algorithms are really making us think that everybody out there who doesn't think like us is evil. And that is just so sad to see, and potentially can contribute to political violence. So, I just wanted to say that some of the specific things we do, we first ask people to identify their values. And Doug does a great job in this from his leadership training and in consulting. What are your values? Authenticity, and then are your values still there? Like when you think of somebody who's different than you, are you really living your values? Are you being kind? Right?
Yes.
Doug taught me this. Yeah.
And it is about values. And Doug, I did this too. I did this exercise with a deck of cards. Each card had a value listed on it. And I first divided the cards in half, by values that were important to me. Then I went and I finally narrowed it down to the 5 values that are most important to me. And I try to live in those lanes, and it's difficult sometimes to, because sometimes you get emotional or whatever and you find yourself outside of your lane. But values, I think people have forgotten what that word means and how important it is when we're dealing with other people and living our own lives and like acting at the grocery store, at the post office, in the car. It's so easy to let the emotion take over. When you talk about values, Doug, how do people identify them?
Well, there's lots of ways you can do it. I liked what you said about the cards. I mean, Brene Brown does a whole bunch of exercises on values. She talks about try to establish your top 2 values. She gives people a list. 2 is a lot. I mean, when I did Brene Brown's list, I picked growing with grace. But there's other values. I think you could have a bigger list, like authenticity and courage, kindness, respect,
integrity.
I think when people, I think this is a great exercise for anyone. What's important to you? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? And then you have to sort of step back and say, okay, but how am I holding myself accountable? And not in an unkind way, but in a way to sort of, raise the standards. I mean, I talk about growing. I mean, to me, that's really important. Growing with grace. I'm a Christian, and so I like that word grace because it speaks.
Yeah.
It sort of covers a lot of different issues, and in terms of how we treat each other. And you're trying to improve myself, and so and then we need to be a little self-analytical. I find on the political, a number of people I talk to on the political left in particular, they say they can, if they're going to acknowledge a conversation with someone on the right, it's almost like they're admitting to this or they're agreeing with this. That's not it. It's about having conversations, about listening to people, curiosity and humility and listening. These are pretty important characteristics of a developing human person that we seem to have lost. I mean, whoever talks about humility anymore? I mean, and curiosity, and how do we relate to other people, and not being so righteous. I mean, this is part of this. Is this idea that I'm always right, and therefore I'm going to look down at you because you're wrong. And how did we fall into this kind of trap? It's so dangerous.
I have a theory about that. I'd love to run it by you, Beth.
Yeah,
my theory is that with the advent and the just explosion of not only, first it was media, right? Because you didn't just have the networks anymore. You had every satellite channel known to man. Then it's social media, which delivers right to you based on an algorithm. That the things that people... It's no more really, people aren't just interested in these nice little conversations. They're interested in sound bites. They're interested in clickbait. They're interested in something that enrages them, or dogs and cats and babies that makes them just, oh. And it's like there's no real in between. And I think it's just that it is almost forced people, normal, civil people, if they want any attention at all, if they want any audience at all, they almost have to scream something at one end or the other to get that attention. And then it makes them look in a way that maybe they don't even want to look that way, but they feel that they have to in order to draw to draw people.
I 100% agree. And actually, Doug's mantra that I've say a lot is, if it screams, it streams.
Yeah.
And if it's time, pay no mind. And it's true. And that's one of the challenges we've had getting our book out, is because kindness and curiosity doesn't always sell as much as outrage, right?
Yeah.
I want to just get to a little bit of your question about the practical. What can people do? I agree with you 100% that everything you just said about the social media algorithms are adding. What I think has helped me, as authenticity was one of my things that I put as a value. And I actually train, I'm a doctor, so I listen to people all the time in my practice. I'm a neurology sleep specialist. I also am a moderator for Braver Angels. And I found that by teaching these skills, I have more confidence. So, for example, when I go in and talk with one of my friends who's a Christian, I'm Jewish, who's a Christian conservative in Nashville, and we're good friends. He realized my husband bought a gun, so he took me out to breakfast, and we took all about guns and what gun I should get and all this stuff. And then I said, let me take you out to breakfast so we can talk about medically appropriate abortion. And I should say that as a result of talking with my friends in Nashville, I moved more on elective abortions to the middle. I was much more to the left. But on medically appropriate ectopic pregnancies, all the things that could go wrong, I have a very strong belief that we have to take care of the life of the mother. And
yes,
I sat
absolutely.
down with him, right? I sat down with him, and because of my Braver Angel skills, I was able to let him feel heard, make sure he knew that I understood where he was coming from, And then I was able to speak in a way that related to him. We talked about his daughter. We talked about being at the state capitol in Tennessee and standing arm in arm with pro-life doctors to talk about how important it was to preserve the life and health of the mother.
Yes.
And I got through to him, and that was incredibly powerful. So I really want to make a plug for those one-on-one conversations. Don't do them on social media, and if you don't know how to do it, it's Braver Angels and many other organizations too. It's really active listening and speaking from your heart. So I just wanted to say, as Thanksgiving is approaching, for people on the left, try not to demonize Uncle Fred. I know it's easy, right, to do that. And everybody in your bubble may be doing that and telling you that you have a higher moral imperative to tell Uncle Fred that we have a climate crisis. Just try to have a conversation with him that's calmer. And I would say for the people on the right, I've noticed many of them are just retreating because they've been attacked and ambushed. And I would say, give Aunt Sue a chance. Maybe, just maybe, she'll have a good conversation with you about something and you'll learn something and she'll learn something. And I can't say that enough.
Well, embracing hope, dignity, and respect in these challenging times is section 1 of this book. And I think it's this is a quote from Abraham Lincoln: "The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion." It's so important, Doug, for us to remember that we can play a role in sifting through some of this, as Beth just mentioned, and being an active listener, someone who's willing to say, that's a human being sitting right there across from me. They've got hopes, dreams, wants, and desires, and all the same things that I do. You know where I find, Doug, where I'm the most comfortable is at baseball games and the dog park. Although sometimes at the dog park, people start to get into political discussions, and I find that I'll just walk another lap. But at baseball games, you don't know. I go to my son's college baseball games. I don't know what any of these people, what their politics are, and we all get along. So I'm thinking to myself, is it good to bring politics into the conversation, Doug, or is it better to just leave it out and just sort of talk about other stuff?
Well, that's a great question. And why does politics always have to become so central or so defining? We make
it's almost like religion, right?
And we become, we make assumptions about people. That's natural. We're not gonna, but let's embrace people. Let's treat people as someone that might be interesting. We talked about some of the factors that are really driving this, and we've talked a little bit about the social media algorithms, and it's not just social media, it's the algorithms that are pushing us apart. But there's the conflict entrepreneurs, are the people who are really exploiting this for benefit, and a lot of them are foreign governments. We have examples of
thank you, Doug. Say that again, Doug. Say that again.
A lot of them are foreign governments. There's a wonderful example that Jonathan Rauch uses of a very contentious pro and con protest, and it turned out there was no one organizing it other than someone had said, come to this town, and it was from the Russians or Iranians. There's a lot of awareness about this that's so important. But it's also deeper than politics, and it's Robert Putnam wrote a great book, a couple of books called Bowling Alone, in which he talked about, people are not in bowling leagues, or they're not at baseball games where they're interacting, getting to know each other. Rotary clubs, people are in silos, more and more and more in silos, which is ironic considering that we have so many quote unquote friends, but a lot of them think like us. But he talks about how there was going back to the Gilded Age of the late 1800s, and there was a real, the country was in a lot of trouble, but there was an upswing, and he said it to about 1960 on his research, and now we've been going down again. So what's it going to take to get another upswing, another he calls it the I versus we, and how we think about other people. I mean, these things are so vital. And you mentioned Abraham Lincoln. We love Lincoln. I'll share just another quote. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. I mean, this is, why can't we talk to people? Or we've lost, and it has to start from the heart. I mean, we can give you people skills. We can show people ways that can with Braver Angels, and it's in our book about how you can enter into these conversations. But it's going to start from the heart, and it's going to start from a willingness. And even on Thanksgiving, you could say, if you don't want to develop all the skills, you could say, Uncle Fred, I know we disagree about politics, but our relationship is really important to me, and I hope we can maintain it. And you can just get past the elephant in the room or the donkey in the room. That people just let the bubble burst and say, I know, I know we disagree, but our relationship's important, and that's such a strong message, and that people can resonate with. Even if they don't want to develop some of the more of the skills, we have a workshop called Families and Politics, and we have great tips about the steps to take in our book. But just a sentence like that could be kind of deflating for everybody.
I just wanted to jump in quickly, if it's okay, Michele.
Yes, of course.
I feel that is going to be the hope. That is going to be what gets us out of this mess, because Americans don't want to be taken for a ride. We don't want to be told, we're being manipulated, right, by anyone, foreign countries, the conflict entrepreneurs. We wrote a Substack. We have a Substack, by the way, called Together Across Differences. It's a free newsletter. And we wrote one called We're Better Than This, right? Regardless of whether you're on the left or on the right. I remember one of my personal trainers in Nashville. We were very different. He was very conservative, and I'm on the left. And we talked about the foreign governments, and we found common ground, and we're not going to let that get to us. And we bonded over that, and we became very good friends. So I think that might help our country, because, we're on Team America, and there's so much we have to work on in this country. Like, look at the shutdown and everything. I mean, we have so much we have to solve, and we have to get back to being the world leader, right? And
I think people have forgotten, quite frankly, that we are a nation, that what the nation stands for and what it means. And I will say, we have people now in positions of leadership who might be beholden to people outside of this country with this country's best interests not at heart. And that is a concern. You call them disruption entrepreneurs?
Conflict entrepreneurs.
Conflict entrepreneurs. I love that term. And obviously for some people it's a money-making venture. For others, I think it is a power-broking tool. And I worry that, listen, I have two kids that I've watched go through school. And what they've learned in school is very different from what I learned in school. And the emphasis in education is very different from what it was when I was in school. I was reading by the time I was 4, and I tried to bring my kids up that way. Every parent wants the best for their children. But ideology doesn't seem to me to belong in K through 12. It seems to me that that's something that kids can go off and explore in college. Here in Minnesota, where I live, our reading scores have plummeted. Our math scores have plummeted. But boy, do kids learn about other stuff that's more ideological in nature. And to me, do they know what fascism is? Do they know what communism is? Do they know what socialism is? Do they know anything about World War II and the Greatest Generation? Do they know anything about World War I? Do they know geography? These are the things I think also have played into the growth of this this conflict. I don't know if either one of you wants to chime in on
Well,
that.
I would say that, we've sort of gone towards STEM, but we're not emphasizing enough basic civics.
Right.
And now granted, everything's political now, but this is where people come together, work it out, develop a curriculum, and what does it mean to be an American? I mean, I think that's a really rich conversation. What does it mean to be American? And what are American values? And by the way, we find that these kinds of conversations, when we actually get people in the room with our Braver Angels kind of workshops, we find people have a lot more in common than they really believe.
Absolutely.
That they find that, people, then again, the people are being manipulated by the social media, by the conflict entrepreneurs. By the way, our graphic of that is a crocodile trying to eat the American flag. That when people need to be aware and need to step back, but we need to educate our kids so that, how they approach, how they even interact with people, and now it's become so politicized on both sides, really, that what can we, if we could develop curriculums in the school boards and really come to a consensus on what we believe as Americans. And what's the Constitution, and what does it mean to us, and why is it important, and why is the Declaration of Important? And we got to talk about some of the flaws in the country. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean,
and by the way, and Beth, we need to talk about the flaws, but sometimes we act as if no one's having a conversation about the flaws. We've been discussing the flaws since the flaws began. I mean, look, in second grade, I wrote my second grade report book on Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. And what it was about slavery. It was about many things, but at that time I wrote about the slave part of it. I was 7 years old. So it's not like, I think every generation comes in thinking, no one's talking about this. Well, yeah, we've been talking about it.
We agree. My favorite class, it's funny because I ended up as a doctor and in science. When I look back, my favorite classes were social studies and history. And I remember, I don't know if I was 8 years old, it might have been AP, but I remember taking these classes on the Civil War, and they did it from every different perspective. So yes, there was the slavery issue. There was also the economic issue. There was also the the lost cause or whatever. This whole idea that you're like Gone with the Wind, right? Like the idea that there really was maybe another reason that the Civil War was fought besides slavery. And what I loved about it was, at least back then, we debated and we talked about all the different reasons. And I had to write a paper on an opposing view. And in the book, I mentioned that one of the ladies I play pickleball with, she says to me, she's a teacher, and she says, we love to debate, but we have to wait until the end of the year when the grades are in, because kids are afraid in high school to say something that might be offensive to their teacher, right?
Listen, I have lived that. Yeah. I have seen my kids cower away from their opinions and say, you know what, I'm just going to get through this class. I'm going to write what the teacher wants me to write.
Yeah. Or, the idea that if they say something in class that's different, right? Then the other students are going to be like, how could you possibly say that? Don't you know we're being oppressed or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, this is coming from me, who leans left, but I really appreciate so many conservative voices and liberal voices. I mean, what I relish more than anything, being more in the middle, is having progressive friends and conservative friends who feel like they can speak their minds, and I can listen with curiosity. I can try, sometimes it's actually easier for me to talk to a conservative, but it's important. It's important that we get that to our schools. And there's a program called Bridge USA that Manu Neal is doing, and the Braver Angels has this as well. The idea of getting onto these college campuses like Charlie Kirk did, right? and getting people to talk and getting students to be engaged. But it's harder sometimes than it seems like it would be.
Yeah. All right, Doug, final word to you. I want people to get this book, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. There is something bigger than ourselves. And I think when people are young, they don't really get that. They really are self-centered. They're in survival mode. They want to, get through whatever they're doing, college school, trade school, whatever, and find their place in the world. But once you live long enough and there really is something bigger than you. How do we sell your book? How do we get people to understand that this is really an important effort?
Well, I appreciate that question so much. We're trying to give people a hopeful roadmap to try to find a way in these dark moments, and the goal is to transform the politics of fear and contempt into the politics of hope. And we talk about bettering our relationships. We talk about better mental health. People are so much in despair. How to help your community, as well as the country, but even to be a political activist. How can you be a bridge builder? So all of this stuff is detailed in the book. And yes, this is challenging. This is hard. But I'll quote Kevin Garnett, since I just heard you mention him. Anything is possible. Anything is possible, and I've been and I don't have that quote in the book. I have to confess, we have a lot of good quotes in the book, and I didn't find that one. But we've had a couple conversations that I'm a Boston sports fan and
yes,
a big fan of the Patriots. But I saw that Kevin Garnett quote from the Boston Celtics. Anything is possible, and I loved what you said.
My hair was a lot shorter then, and I was a lot younger then. And I had to reach like crazy because you know how tall Kevin is. But yes, after they won the NBA championship, and I have known Kevin since he graduated from high school. Yes, he said anything's possible. And anything is possible, but it requires some work and understanding that it's not all about the individual. I want to give you each one chance to tell me what you think is what you're most grateful to for. If I could put a sentence together, what makes you most grateful for America? Beth, we'll start with you. Why is America worth saving?
The opportunity. I was just in New York City, and I know there's a lot going on in New York City right now, but when you think about historically, the vibe, the energy, the idea that you can come here and make it and contribute to your country and make a good life for you and your kids. And that's what my parents did. My dad was in World War II, and just this idea that there's so much opportunity here, and we're the greatest country in the world, and we have to reclaim that, and we can't be like at each other's throats. We have to be on Team America, and we're better than this. We're better than Amanda Ripley's conflict entrepreneur term. We're better than this. We can do it.
I just think, we can't take this for granted. And, I remember thinking when I've been blessed to travel, and I was walking through the streets of Rome, and there's this incredible, monuments to time. And, but Rome fell eventually. And I thought, we don't want to fall. We've only had 250 years of history. We cannot take this for granted. This is special. But we have to work at it. We have to work, and we all have to step up and do our part, even if it's just to have a little conversation, or even just a little conversation, a little more kindness, just to maybe push back on your side a little more, because we think that people get kind of stuck in their bubbles, and it can be sometimes alienating when people are kind of only hoeing the party line, so to speak, to push back a little bit and say, well, wait a minute, maybe that person isn't quite that. Maybe we shouldn't make assumptions. Little things like that, And we try to provide really specific steps in the book about ways people can touch, but start from the heart.
You know, I end every podcast. Oh, by the way, I just want to say something. You made me think of a marriage. I've been married now 25 years. It has not all been rosy. We have you're laughing because, you know, we've had our peaks and our valleys, but we know what we have is important together. And we both compromise continuously and listen to one another and respect one another. America's like one big marriage, you know, it's like a big family. And in order for this family to stay together, you've got to make compromises as small, some large. You got to do it. And so again, the book, folks, is Beyond the Politics of Contempt. Practical steps. It's just such an easy read too, by the way. And it's so direct. Practical steps to build positive relationships in divided times. This is a book for the moment. You can find it at Amazon. Where else can you find it?
Barnes & Noble online, really anything online. Yeah, I mean, that's
your
probably your best
bookstore.
bet.
Your bookstore will order it for you.
Your bookstore will get it for you too, yeah.
You know what? If you're watching us or listening to us, you clearly have an online stream. You have access to a computer or a device. You can order it. Beyond the Politics of Contempt, braverangels.org. I am so grateful for both of you. I end every podcast by saying, be brave and do good. And that's exactly what Braver Angels is about. And that's what this book helps us all do. So thank you again for being with us. You can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.